everyone, and welcome to our Women in Technology panel as part of Microsoft Customer Success Day. My name is Monica Flaherty, and I work at Microsoft. I lead our customer success marketing team, which means my team focuses on driving post-sale success for our customers. And today I have a wonderful panel of women here to discuss the role of women in technology and how inclusion can drive innovation. I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Geeta Wallabaneni, CEO of Luminix Corporation. I have Chaitra Vedullapalli, who is the co-founder of Women in Cloud, and Raegan Wilson, who is the VP of Channel Ecosystems at Spur, a great consulting agency that we work with. And I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll dig into the meat of the material. Raegan, can you introduce yourself to us?
Absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity to join this panel with these wonderful women. I'm Raegan Wilson, VP of Channels and Ecosystems at Spur Reply, where I lead our ecosystems transformation team comprised of our strategy, automation, insights, solutioning, and architecture practices. I'm the executive sponsor for the Women of Spur Employee Resource Group, and I also serve on the board for a Women's Leadership Council and Channel, where we're passionate about nurturing and growing the next generation of female leaders. And we really focus on creating a space for women to advance and be vulnerable. I've been in tech for most of my career, and I've seen firsthand how things have become more inclusive. I'm very passionate about women's physical and mental health, and I'm actually a certified group fitness instructor in several formats.
Awesome. That is great. And thank you so much for joining us. Chaitra, can you introduce yourself to us, please?
Absolutely. First, just thank you for having me and being part of an amazing panel with amazing women today. I'm so excited. It's actually March, and it's all about celebrating women and our history to create equal access in all of us. I describe myself as a curious entrepreneur of building innovation in the areas of marketing and tech. I also collect a lot of interesting blueprints and mental models to make our life easier. And I'm a curator of amazing people to create inclusive impact in the world. I wear 3 hats nowadays. So I'm a co-founder and CMO at Mela. We're a Microsoft partner, and we provide world-class go-to-market solution for co-selling with hyperscalers, especially leveraging the marketplaces and accelerating their ESG goal. And as a founder and president of Women in Cloud, we have a mission to create $1 billion in economic access for women founders and professionals. So we partner with most of the companies to easily implement that go-to-market programming that supports them to become a brand like a cloud brand and intellectually grow their ERG ecosystem, especially around the professional development, and also help them assist them in a supplier diversification. And recently, I became actually a general partner to pull together an MXW Ventures, a fund to influence Hollywood movies that represent women, tech, and allies in the right fashion. The reason why I'm passionate is the stories we tell and the stories we grow with are not aligned today. So I believe we need to create access for each one of them to really have the right economic opportunities and economic prosperity. And that's what I'm very passionate about. And today I'm really excited that we are in 2023 and we are really making an impact on inclusion, and we are rethinking how we make an impact here.
Thank you so much, Chaitra, for that introduction. Geeta, I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Monica, for having me on this panel. I truly appreciate sharing the stage with Raegan and Chaitra. My name is Geeta Wallabaneni, and I'm the CEO and founder of Luminix, Inc. We make cloud software available on mobile devices, even when offline. For example, we integrate with Microsoft Dynamics 365 technology, make it available offline and on mobile devices. We also integrate with other CRM systems. So I have worked with you, Monica, in the past and absolutely appreciate our partnership. And I also serve on the boards of Dignity Health Foundation, and I'm on the advisory board for African Museum of the African Diaspora. I truly believe in working with the community, not only making an impact in our industry, but in our communities as well. And women in tech matter to me. To start with, I am one, and I would like to see many more of me in the industry contributing. But joking aside, 50% of us are of the female gender, and that's a huge potential to tap into. And we bring a different perspective, leadership style, empathy, and understanding to leadership roles. So I would love to see more women in the future. But I've also had the opportunity to work with amazing women. I've been in the right time and right place in many, many areas, including you, Monica. So I love seeing you in your role, and you're a great role model.
Thank you so much. It is just a pleasure connecting with other women in technology. And I want to set the stage for what I believe is super important about inclusion right now, which is that inclusion is something that really makes us better. I don't believe in doing inclusion, D&I, for the purposes of helping out just the people that are now included, but I've seen among the teams that I've been a part of and teams that I've led, when I get a diversity of team members, the quality of our work goes up. The goals that we set become different and attenuated for the populations that we're serving. And this isn't just about gender diversity. It's about race, national origin, neurotypes, age, location. All of those things bring different perspectives. And I'm proud to say that as a Microsoft employee, there are two great initiatives that Microsoft is doing around this. One is the Inclusion is Innovation campaign, and this goes beyond women in technology, but deals with a lot of different categories that we may put ourselves into, and talks about what that brings in terms of strength to the organization. And we'll share that link at the end of this panel, but it's publicly available, and it's a great approach and program, and it's a great lens to look at inclusivity. The second thing I want to talk about is Microsoft's D&I report. Microsoft publishes, and we'll also share this, data targets attainment of these diversity targets and goals. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is that not only do we have to have good intentions, which I've seen in many, many corporate environments, we have to have accountability to diversity. So I really, really appreciate that Microsoft publishes hard data around this. And I encourage you to take this back to your organizations, be courageous, set real targets, and track how you're doing. We don't have to be perfect, but we'll do better if we set clear vision and targets for this. So given that, setting that stage, what I'd like to do is just start us all off to weigh in here. How have you all seen, and you have great careers in technology, how have you seen the technology industry evolve in terms of how your teams are forming? And how have you noticed this change then benefiting your organizations and the work that you do for your customers? Raegan, I'd love to hear from you on this.
Well, growing up in tech, it looks so much different now than it did when I first started. I remember feeling kind of like a fish out of water. There weren't panels like this back then, and I'm not going to age myself, but this stuff didn't really exist. And I remember feeling like I was the woman in the room full of men, and maybe they were looking to me to get them coffee when really I was a peer of theirs. And so what I see now looks completely different, right? There's more of us in the room, more of us have seats at the table. People are speaking up. They're having those courageous conversations. We're bringing in new perspectives. And that has changed how we do business. It's changed how we think about the work-life balance that we try to have. COVID changed a lot of that for many of us, for many women out there, where they had to kind of balance the home life and the work life all at home. And so technology is benefiting from having more of us in the workforce, but not just so much having us there, but having us there with a voice and being willing to bring that voice to the table, because that's really the key. It doesn't matter how many of us there are. If we're not willing to step up, have the hard conversations, bring our ideas to the table, and be willing to voice and advocate for them.
That resonates so much with me. I think that the reason that we bring benefit to those rooms is we have a voice with a new perspective to share. So not only do we need a seat at the table, we need a microphone and the ability to share the insights that we have. And I personally feel that we need to support that in all sorts of different spaces. For instance, there's a whole new age of people coming through who are fresh out of college, who are bringing up ideas that I don't even think about. And, I want to, just as much as I've been given a hand forward, I want to give a hand forward to that new generation to bring their thoughts as well. Chaitra, Geeta, any thoughts on this from you?
Monica, Raegan said it very well, is when we started our careers in tech, it was very different. I actually got inspired to get into tech because of a Microsoft's Windows 95 announcement on the TV, because my role was to become a housewife. And I remember watching that one, is that it's going to change 1 billion people's life. And I'm like, how can something that's invisible, and I'm an electrical engineer, so something invisible can transform someone's life. So instead of going into music and fashion industry, I decided to take tech as a more, kind of a direction, and went and took some courses and got into the tech company. And pretty much, as Raegan said, we were usually the only person in the room, and people would not give acknowledgement that we could actually do something smart work. But as you go through the last 25 years, I see a lot of changes that's happening. Again, it all depends upon the perspective. So when you start searching today on Bing or any other search engines, you will start to see there's more negative narratives that show up rather than positive. When you look at the positive side, we actually have more companies investing in DEI work. It's part of their ESG work. And more investment companies are investing in women. But if you go back 10 years, 20 years, I don't even remember raising money from an investor. But at least now they say it's less than 2%. Great. But at least we have a data to really drive the changes. So there's a lot of attention and awareness around the inclusion work. That's great. But from a negative side, when you look at it from a negative perspective, the economic access is extremely low, which is what I care about is. And let me share some examples so kind of it opens up people's mind. So if you're looking within the company and you look at number of women who are actually owning a P&L, it's extremely low. So if you ask is, how many women in my company have $1 million of P&L? Very few. So most women are really seen as individual contributors and operational and marketing roles. So that's an area to look, because once you give them power of money and access to managing money, women become stronger and confident because they can start investing. So they go from, budget line items like spending to more investing. The second one is when you look at women building companies, it's also again very low. Only 2% of the Microsoft Partner Channel constitutes of women tech founders like us who are building SaaS and service businesses, and it applies across the entire tech channel. So there's a room for improvement. Once you fix this, then all the corporations can have a very diverse supplier ecosystem. Now, when you look at building capacity of cloud workforce, that is also less. It's around 18% today. So that means there's not a whole lot of access to getting them education so they can get skilled and certified so they can actually become innovators. And when you look from an ESG perspective, companies are only focused on environments. They are working hard on D&I, but the execs have not put a real good investment. Like, for example, inclusion is, innovation campaign. Every Microsoft partner should be participating in that campaign because we care about it. So when you look at all the pieces, the very simple way is to look at your people and your team and your customers you're engaging with, and you put their faces and pictures together, you'll see how inclusive you are and how inclusive you're not. So that's kind of the very simple litmus test to do. But I would say is when you look at 25 years and now you look back, I would say we are in a very right direction for making the economy inclusive. Yes, with COVID, we went back, and with the economic recession, we are going back. But more and more women are aware. But the way to change that is getting involved in tech policy work, working on building tech solution, getting skilled, and making sure that we have access to role models, money, and people. That's kind of how I would look at it.
Chaitra, I love that you went to data. I'm a big data nerd. I love looking at stats. And that's one of the reasons I like these D&I reports. Raegan, you started us out by saying that we don't just need a seat at the table, we need a voice. And Chaitra, I think you took this a step farther. We don't just need a seat and a voice, but we need power, money, and influence.
Money, access.
And so
yes.
I think that when we do D&I reports and when we look at data for our organizations, we need to see where are women in senior leader roles? What do they have for P&Ls? What are their team size? What is their meaningful contribution? And I'd love to kick it over to Geetha now, because you're a CEO of a tech company. I've sat side by side with you in front of Fortune 10 companies pitching millions of dollars of business. And you and I have been, some of the only people in the room. How has this impacted your business? I mean, as a woman who does own the P&L in the business, what's your insight around this?
Yeah, absolutely. Chaitra and Raegan already added a lot of, important topics of discussion here. So I will take a little bit of a different perspective because we need multiple perspectives at the table. So to start off, I was actually lucky. I started out of school at Sun Microsystems, which was a very technical-oriented company. I started in the kernel group, Solaris operating system group, and then I worked on the compiler backend group. The first manager that hired me was a woman, Loretta. And of the compiler group, there were 8 of us. 3 of us were women. So it was actually, for that time, right, early 2000, this was unusual, super technical background women. So from that foundation, it helped me build that confidence of sitting at the table and speaking and being heard. And also, we take one step back and think about my background. I was originally from India. I was born in India, but from the moment I can remember, people saying I was smart mattered a lot to me. So when we are talking about identities and strong identity, what you define yourself, that matters a lot. And so we can't wait too late in life to reinforce that in children. And diversity and inclusion, and I'm really happy to see companies publishing data. But if we're asking companies to create targets, again, we're too late. And we really can't ask that of corporations. We have to figure out how we all are educating ourselves and our children to say different thought patterns matter, different backgrounds matter, different perspectives are matter. And like you were articulating so well, Monica, they bring richness to the table. And as a result, we're better off, right? So I will give you an example of my own company, our founding team. I'm an Indian American woman, and my VP of engineering is African American. My CTO is of Mexican and Chilean ancestry. So I did not purposefully go looking for them, right? They were in my circle and they're the smartest people I know. How did that happen? That's because we got to put our bubbles burst open and reach out across different spectrums in life and form friendships and understand each other. I strongly believe that's the way to solve this problem at the core grassroots level. So that's, I just wanted to add that perspective to this discussion.
I love that, Geetha, because I know that oftentimes when we raise young girls, we say, oh, isn't she pretty? Isn't she beautiful? And I was actually getting my hair braided at an African hair braider, and this precocious little 2-year-old walked in, and she just had all that spunk and confidence, and she's stomping around the beauty salon. And the women all said, look at her. She's a strong young girl. And they didn't say anything about her being pretty. They were observing another trait. And I think we need to observe intelligence, strength, a lot of non-traditional things, perhaps, about women. In the same way, we need to observe that about young men and non-binary people. To say, well, isn't he sensitive? Isn't he thoughtful? And pepper that across everyone. But I think it's really an important note to say we could be too late if we're using just targets to try to change our world. So I agree with that. Raegan, I'd love to hear from you. I know that Spur works with a number of organizations consulting. What are you seeing across the organizations that you serve? And is there an appetite for increased diversity of talent? Are you seeing and engaging with different people now than you did 10, 20 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. And at Spur, we work with a broad range of clients, and I've noticed more and more women in leadership roles. I'm seeing them step up in meetings. They're having those crucial conversations, and they're making their points heard. They're at the helm of these major initiatives within their companies, and they're driving transformation. And this wouldn't have been the case, 5 or 10 years ago, even. In the women's leadership board that I'm on, we do these chats and have topics, and oftentimes it's how do I get to the next level? How do I get promoted? How do I get into that channel chief seat? And I've seen several people who've raised their hand and said that was their goal, actually attain it. So the more diverse representation that we have by people raising their hands and setting those sights and reaching for those goals, the more innovation that we're seeing come out of those people having those seats, right? Those women being in the room. And those new perspectives are driving big results for these companies. I'm also seeing people these women, as they come into these new roles across new companies, as they change seats from company to company, they're not afraid, as they would have been in the past, to come in early and make big decisions or make big plays. And we wouldn't have seen that happen, 5 years ago. I'm also seeing women burning the candle at both ends, unfortunately. And they're taking more and more onto their plates, and that's becoming unsustainable. I mean, I might say I do that as well. We know that only about 28% of women are in the tech field. We're making about 28% of the workforce. And so while we're seeing that number increase, there's still a great opportunity for companies to drive that number higher. And the stats show that companies in the top quartile for diversity outperform the companies in the bottom quartile. So there's a huge opportunity really for these companies to tap into the skills of women to drive profitability. And let's face it, who doesn't want that right now? But as we fill these seats, we then become the role models to the next generation and the examples to the women around us. And I think the example we give them of how much we're doing or how much we're taking on our plate or not setting boundaries or setting boundaries is a pretty important example that we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, it is a really important point. I think that there's a lot of extra work that we do as women and to sustain our households. And I think of it as a gift I'm giving to the next generation. Hopefully I'll break down some doors and make a little easier for the generations that follow.
Absolutely.
I was going to make exactly that point. At some point, one generation has to become the ones that sacrifice, right? So when I have a 7-month-old, by the way. So when that happened, a couple of people reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you need help? Do you want to step aside?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to. I will manage this. I will manage this through," because too many of us take that step to be there for family. I will work hard. That's okay. That's what I take pleasure in it too. So I think our generation will have to live through and hold the candle up, like you said, Raegan, and hopefully next generation, it'll be easier for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for that perspective. Well, it has been a wonderful conversation, and I'm really looking forward to the questions for all of you folks watching. So we invite you to come with us. We'll put the information up on the screen to our interactive chat session. But as we close up here, I would love for you three to share with us, if you could, one or two things that you would like to ask people who are watching this to either think about for themselves, for their organizations, that can really help move them forward in this diversity journey. Chaitra, do you want to kick us off here?
Absolutely. I think I have a couple of perspectives and maybe some couple of suggestions for you to consider. And I hope all of you join Women in Cloud as we create $1 billion of economic access. So if you're an individual and you're like, I don't know what to do, here's a couple of things to consider. Develop your own cloud and leadership skills so you can lead cloud transformation. So really invest in getting skilled, getting connected, and really invest in owning a small P&L, even if it's 100,000 or maybe $1 million or maybe 10 million, depending upon your organization. Own in any capacity. So think about becoming an entrepreneur or intrapreneur, because that's the skills you need to really grow yourself. The second is, if you're a company and you're a CEO sitting there and say, oh, what do I do? Well, first is invest in a go-to-market that supports women and really invest in your ESG work and really ensure that your organization, women are represented as a role model, a contributor to your profitability, and then accelerate your strategic goals through the ESG work and really create an inclusive economy. As a CEO, it is absolutely imperative that you take responsibility for creating that inclusion. And for all others, you say, I don't know, I fit into this bucket, I would say get involved in public policy work around the tech in your local region. If you need any guidance on it, just come and ask me, and I can share the tech policy readiness program we have developed with Microsoft. Go and become a tech policy advocate. There are 8,000 tech policies that are in play right now, and you need to get involved, especially around the data privacy one. So don't sit there and think, I can't do it. You can do something today.
Awesome. Geeta, any last words for us?
Well, I'm a big student of Gandhi and Dr. King. Individual is the change. So I strongly recommend all of us always introspect and question our own inherent biases. I have many. If we think we don't, that we're wrong. So change starts from within.
Love it. Raegan?
I would say leaders, think about looking at those boundaries and making sure that you're setting them and you're setting an example for your team of allowing a space for that. Individuals, I would say, find a mentor, figure out what path you want to be on, and go get it. Because the sky's the limit. And the last thing I would say is throw the book out. The book of the past is the past, and the future looks completely different. So what was done and what our generations went through is not what it should look like for you. So forget what has been done and just push forward and know that there's going to be even more of us, and why shouldn't it be you?
Yep. I love it. Thank you all again, panelists. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us here. For all of you watching this in live, we will be in a Q&A section. We'll put that up on the screen. Thank you again, and we'll talk with you soon.